dedicated to work. And that is a department where we focus on people with different kinds of disabilities and try to support them as much as we can to find an employment or an education or whatever help they might need. My task in this little department is actually two. The first part is to coordinate the cooperation between the Employment Service and the Prison and Probation Service on the national level. And then I also work with another task, and it's a special one. I work to support the social enterprises in Sweden and to increase the number of social enterprises in Sweden, because it's a rather small number. But I think this kind of social enterprises is very important in order to support the employment offices to find employment for people with disabilities. I will talk a little bit more about that later on. Today I will focus on, a couple of things. I will focus on, of course, what we do for the moment in the Swedish Employment Service together with the Prison and Probation Service. And then I will, at the end, focus on the social enterprises as well. I hope that we will have some time at the end of my speech so that you can ask questions. I know it has been lunch, and it's a tough time to keep you awake and to keep myself awake as well. But let's cope together, so to speak. So what are we then doing in the Swedish Employment Service today? Well, we have a national agreement that we have had since 5 years back now, since 2008. And that general agreement says a little bit about the overall general ideas of how we will cooperate together. So it's signed by the two Director Generals. One of the parts that is written about in this national agreement is that we should have a national management group for the cooperation. So it's a group with 4 participants from each of the authorities, and they manage the cooperation, you can say, in order to have some kind of equality all over the country, so that we are doing the same tasks everywhere, even if we carry out them in different ways, depending on the situation that we're in. So I think that is an important structure for our communication and for our cooperation. Then we have employment officers at each of the 51 prisons. One day it's 51 prisons, and the next day it's 50 prisons. So I'm not really sure about the figure. That depends on how you count, I think. Anyway, we have employment officers in each of the prisons, and that we have had for a very long time, actually, since the mid-70s or something. That started. But then in a very small scale, now we have increased the number of employment officers more or less every year since 5 years back, since we had the national agreement, actually. And that is the amount you can see. It's equivalent to 100 full-time employment officers and 120 employment officers that carry out this work, actually, in Sweden. Then we have vocational training. purchased by the Employment Service to 35 of the 51 prisons. And from autumn this year, we also will have a preparatory course. I will tell you a little bit more about that later on. And I'm very excited for that one, actually, because I think that will be a very good support for the cooperation and for, above all, for the inmates, for the offenders, actually. And then we have another cooperation that we call CRAMI. CRAMI is a cooperation not only between the Employment Service and the Probation Service, but also the municipality and, above all, the Social Welfare Office in each of the cities where we have the CRAMI. I will come back to CRAMI and tell you a little bit more about what they are doing later on. And at the end here you see that we have written guidelines that we have since only 1 or 2 years back, so that's rather new. And the purpose of the written guidelines is that we should have a common way of cooperating all over Sweden between our authorities, because we are all dependent on each other. So because the offenders, they move from one prison to another, and they come out from prison to the probation and to a new employment office. So we have to have some written rules in order to facilitate our cooperation. And I think that has been actually a very good help for both the probation and prison officers as well as the employment officers. And it was created also by a working group with prison officers and employment officers. So though they were the ones putting forward this written guidelines, actually. CRAMI. Well, CRAMI started actually now 33 years ago in Malmö, in the south of Sweden, the first one. And since then, it has increased so that we now are 24, 25 CRAMI in 20 cities in Sweden, actually. And CRAMI consists of at least one staff from each of the 3 authorities. One from the Social Welfare Office, one employment officer, and one probation officer. That is at least the staff. In some of the CRAMIs, there are even a bigger crowd of staff. Maybe, I think in Malmö there are 7 today, 7 staff. But it's only one probation officer and one employment officer, and then it's 5 from the municipality. Because, and that says, I think, something about the importance that the municipality in Malmö thinks about it. They think that it is so important that we have CRAMI, and it's for sure the municipality gain a lot of money, and also, of course, we gain a lot of well-being from the ex-offenders as well. Because approximately 50% of each of the participants in CRAMI receives an employment. So I think that's a rather good result for this group. The average age in CRAMI participants, I think it's around 25 years old, because the youngest are 18 and the oldest are 40. So it's between 18 and 40 years of age. And many of them have drug abuse, a lot of convictions behind them. So it's a rather tough group that we have seen now, actually. But the main goal for PRAMI is to find, obtain, and keep a job. To find a job, well, that could be difficult enough, of course. To obtain a job, it's even more difficult. But to keep the job is the most difficult part. And that is what PRAMI actually has focused on, the keeping of the job. So how can we support the participants in order to keep their job? Well, the staff in PRAMI focus a lot, not only on employment or education, but also on the spare time issues. What will I do after when I come home from work? What can I do then? I need to have a meaningful spare time as well. I need to get contact with my children. I need to have somewhere to live. I need to have some support from a drug abuse. Everything is taken care of within the PRAMI. And they support them, the participants for as long as they need. And that could be several years, actually, after the employment. Is this understandable for everybody? PRAMI also have a special method that they work with, and that is actually a Danish method. It was invented by a professor called Jens Bay in Denmark in the mid-70s, actually, so it was a long time ago now, 40 years ago almost. And it's called the consequence pedagogy. I won't tell you so much about that because then you have to stay here until tomorrow. But you can read about it. There is English literature and websites where you can read about it. So I think I'll skip the explanation because it's a rather long one. But the main issue with this method of working is that each person has to take the responsibility for your own actions. That is the main core in this consequence pedagogy. And it's important for PRAMI, I think, in order to succeed. So it's one of the success factors as well for PRAMI. That is what I think, at least. We have 4 separate PRAMI for women in 4 cities of Sweden. And you know that the Sweden prison system is also divided. We have separate prisons for women, which is some kind of statement that we have done in Sweden, that it is important to separate females and males. So that's what we have done in PRAMI as well. But in smaller cities, it is rather hard to have separate PRAMIs because there are not enough females, prisoners, ex-prisoners. So that's why we have them so far, at least, in the bigger cities in Sweden. We've made 2 surveys when it comes to PRAMI. Do you see when I stand here? Yeah, you do. We've done 2 separate surveys. One was made in 2002, and one was made last year, 10 years after. They are not exactly equivalent with each other, but at least now we have a newer study than the old one, so we are happy to have both of them, actually. As you can see, the results from last year's study, it says that it's 43% times more likely to receive an employment taking part in PROMI compared to the control group, which was people in the probation service not having PROMI. And it's also 32% less probable to relapse in crime. The findings in the survey in 2002 came more or less to the same figures. But at that time, they also made a socio-economic study on PROMI, and where they found out that every Swedish crown put into PROMI gave 17 crowns back to the society. And I think that also explains why the municipality in Malmö put in so many staff in PROMI in Malmö, because they see this. Not every municipality sees this, actually. That is something that we try and discuss with each of the towns that we want to start a PROMI in. We try to tell them this. And it's probably also why we have 25 PROMIs today instead of only one in Malmö. Unfortunately, I have this study only in Swedish. It's not translated yet, but for those of you who can read Swedish, I'm happy to give it to you. Yes?
Could you tell us a little more about the control group? Are they also seeking for work?
Yes. Yes.
But without help from PROMI?
Exactly. It's the same. What the researchers said to me, and what I've read in the survey, it's exactly the same group with as many convictions, as many has drug abuse, the same age, same number of convictions, and the same type of convictions, and so on. You can read the Swedish survey. Cooperation around female offenders. Well, I was actually very happy last year. The 25th of May or 24th of May, I don't remember actually exactly. The Prison and Probation Service and the Employment Service had was given an assignment together to develop the cooperation around female prisoners. And not only female prisoners, actually, female convicts, because it's not only prison but also probation. So why was I happy about that? Well, we have been discussing for many years now the possibility to have a common assignment in the yearly statement from our government that we should cooperate. Because that we haven't had ever. So the reason why we are cooperating now, it's only because of the goodwill of our Director Generals, actually, more or less. So what will happen if we change Director General? And that happens. You know that? Yeah, that's happened. And at least when we change government, that will happen, I'm sure. We have elections next year. So it is important that we have stated in the statute of what we should do, that we should cooperate with each other. I think that is very important. Otherwise, you can take away this cooperation like that, from one year to another. because there are other priorities that the new Director General think is more important. And I don't think that anything could be as important as this. So for me, I think it's very important that we have the common agreement. But now we have it at least in this little small area of female offenders. And one of the things that we started to do actually was to cooperate around a new female prison that is going to be built in the Gothenburg area in Sweden. So from the very beginning, when the planning started, we did it together. So we are 3 persons from the employment service that cooperates with the planners at the head office of the Prison and Probation Service in planning the new prison. I'm very happy for that, because for the first time we will have the possibility to influence what will take place and to come with our approach in this planning. So I think I hope it will be good. In a couple of years I can come back and say, how did it go? But the focus on the development of the cooperation between the probation service and the employment service will be in the probation area, because for many years we have been cooperating very good in the prisons, but not so good in the probation. And that we really need the good cooperation all the way. Otherwise it's almost, I shouldn't say it, we shouldn't do it in the prisons, but we need to have it all the way, otherwise the ex-offenders will have a tough time when they come out from the prisons. So we need the cooperation all the way. But that we will focus on now the coming years, I think, very much. As well as the cooperation with the work integrating social enterprises that we now will try to increase in Sweden. Just a short presentation here. We have 6 female prisons in Sweden. We have employment officers in every prisons, as you know. We have vocational training in 3 of them last year, and we will extend that. So we will have vocational training in all the 6 prisons during this year. The first prison, Hinseberg, is the biggest female prison in Sweden. Kerstin is working there. Then we have training for welders and for tilers. And you had a visit a couple of months ago from the minister, from our 2 ministers actually, from the Ministry of Labour and from the Minister of Justice. They visited Hinseberg. Were you there, Kerstin?
They didn't see me, but they were there.
Yeah. Well, they were a little bit surprised of the kind of vocational training that we have in Hinseberg. So they said, oh, this is typical. You have male vocational training for the females. This is exactly what we need to do differently. And then we said, this is actually the vocational training that the women in Hinseberg has chosen themselves. Because we had actually a gardener training there before. And the female prisoners, they didn't like that at all. So they wouldn't attend. Then we said, okay, this time when we are going to purchase a new vocational training, then we have to do it in another way. We asked the women, what do they want to take part in. So the prison and the employment officer put forward, I think, four areas for vocational training that is possible to have in this prison and also is wanted at the labor market. And then they voted. So, and the women, they voted for these two training courses. And I think it's rather popular at the moment. And they also have the possibility to get an employment afterwards. Because it's a rather long training. The welders, I think it's 40 weeks of training. And if they are not in Hinseberg that long, they can continue their training outside the prison when they come home. And it's the same with tilers. I think it's 25 weeks of tiling, and then what they need in the next step is to have some kind of on-the-job training in order to get the certificates as tilers. And that has been successful as well. And we are really happy for these two vocational training. In Sagsjön, that's a small, open and closed prison outside Gothenburg. And then we will have training for kitchen aids and food service. In Ystad in the south, we will have training for cleaners. And in Färingsö, outside Stockholm, we will have training for gardeners. It's a closed prison. And in Ljustadalen up in the north of Sweden, we have training for kitchen aids and food service. And that we have had for a long time. It's functioning very well, actually. So that is the training, vocational training for the female. And actually it's on the male prisons, this is almost the same type of training that we have. We have some other areas as well in the male prisons, because there's many male prisons in Sweden. So we can extend the type of vocational training. But as I told you before, from autumn we will have courses, a preparatory course that will accompany this vocational training. Because what we have seen is, and what the prison staff has seen, is that many of the prisoners are not really prepared to start vocational training. They need something before. So that's why we have together now worked in the content of this preparatory course, and that will be purchased now during the autumn, and hopefully it can start in September, October in all the prisons in Sweden. Well, at least it's possible to start in all the prisons in Sweden, because we will purchase the training for everybody, but maybe not all the prisons is interested in this, but that we will see. So what is this preparatory course then? Here's some example. It's a short one. It's only for approximately 5 weeks in full-time study. But we will have this as flexible as possible. So the flexibility can consist of either that you choose to have only one of the parts here in your prison, and you can have this one part all over the year if you want. But you can also choose to have all the parts during the whole year or only once. You can choose to have it full-time or you can have it part-time. So in many prisons you have a lot of programs. We have, of course, the ordinary training and education at the prison. We have to combine these activities together with this course. So we try to do it as flexible as possible. And that's the same actually with the vocational training. We try to do that as flexible as possible for the prisons. This preparatory course we have for other job seekers as well, outside prison. But we have, in this, we are trying to adjust the content a little bit to the participants in the prison. And that we have done together with staff from the prisons and employment officers. And PRAMI, because we have used some of the methods and some of the content that you have in PRAMI that we have used here in these parts as well, in the content. Because we know that is successful. So as you can see, the first part is information about the labor market. And then we have history. When it comes to the labor market in Sweden. Why is the Swedish labor market looking as it does today? Well, it is a history behind that, of course. And we think it could be a good thing to talk about that a little bit together with the offenders, so that they have some kind of explanation to why the Swedish society looks like it does. I think it might be a good idea to get a better understanding. And then we will have general as well as specific information about branches and vocations. And that will last for approximately 9 days, this first part. And then we have feel good, it says. Well, then we will talk about and discuss what can I do in order to feel good or feel better. What does my sleeping habits do to myself, my eating habits, my drinking habits, etc. So we will discuss and talk about these things and put that together with other parts here in the course, so that you can have a link between, if I sleep well during the night, maybe then I will manage my work or my studies better. Then we have competencies in working life, like social skills, workplace culture, need of being service-minded, attitudes, etc. That's for 9 days. And entrepreneurship. How to start your own business and how to start a social enterprise. What can I do with this? And what is possible for me, and what is does it mean for me? And to the last one, it said internet connected to the content above. So we will put the internet into each of the parts. So, for example, when we talk about information about the labor market, is how can I use the internet in order to get more information, apply for jobs and things like that. When it comes to feel good, well, then we maybe also talk about how can I pay my bills through internet, things like that. So we try to connect the internet and the computer use to the different areas. I have only 10 minutes left. Whee! So, I will go, you will have these slides, so you can have a look at them afterwards. The Employment Service have special initiatives when it comes to people with disabilities. And here are some of them. And when I say people with disabilities, I also mean people with drug abuse, for example. Not only mental illness and deaf people and so on, or hearing disabilities, but also drug abuse and social disabilities, actually. So therefore, we can use these programs and initiatives also for our common group of ex-offenders. One of them I will talk a little bit more about, because I think that is also important when it comes to what I told you before about CRAMI. And this is Special Introductory and Follow-up Support. That is actually a program, but the program is an employment officer. And an employment officer who are skilled in something called supported employment. And I guess supported employment is something that you have heard about. Have you? Have you heard about supported employment before? Some, yes, I think yes. Yeah. Supported employment is a method that started in Canada, United States, a long time ago. Sweden has now taken that into the Employment Service and adjusted it a little bit. The main thing is that you have an employment officer working in 5 steps. He makes a vocational profile through meeting the job seeker, and of course makes a lot of an assessment of the needs of this special job seeker. He tries to find a workplace suitable according to the needs of this job seeker. He made a workplace analysis. So what is this workplace about? What will this job seeker do? What is the environment of the workplace, etc. And then and he do that together with the job seeker all the time. And then we come to workplace introduction. So the job seeker or the ex-offender will start his workplace, as his new workplace. So what the employment officer can do is to come to the home of the ex-offender or the job seeker in the morning and go and follow him to his workplace. And at the workplace, the employment officer will be together with the job seeker during the day, help him out in different tasks at the workplace. Many people, for instance, with mental illnesses, they can work, they can actually carry out what they are doing, but they have big problems when it comes to the coffee break. What will I talk about at the workplace? Then the employment officer can help out even there. So he is the employment officer is a support not only to the job seeker but also to the employer, actually. And then they have a very long follow-up between 6 and 12 months. He will follow this job seeker very thoroughly until employment, or even after the employment as well. So it's a good program, I think, that we have. And just a few words about work integrating social enterprises. We have a cooperation now between the prisons and some of the work integrating social companies and the Employment Service in Sweden in order to increase the knowledge about this kind of companies, because the knowledge in Sweden is rather low. The definition of a working interacting social enterprise is as follows here, and that's the government who has made this definition actually. It's companies with the aim to integrate people into society and into working life. That's what we are talking about today. Great involvement by co-workers, empowerment. So these companies are very good in working with empowerment, I think. They reinvest the company profits and they are independent of public authority. So that's the definition. But what we are trying out now is, especially when it comes to this female assignments, female offender assignments that we have, is to start a process in prison through the probation and to an employment at a work integrating social company. That could be one way for female offenders. That could be very good if you need some time, extra time, in order to find yourself and carry out all the things that is needed before you can take the next step and go further in your life. So, well, I think I'll stop here and take some questions, actually. Oh, maybe I should show that. Okay, any questions?
No?
So, I am impressed because we have provided every single chance, I think. As I am, okay, I told you that I don't need. As I am coming for positive science.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
It's okay.
I want to come to the point. So the result. How many, can you tell me which is the percentage of released offenders that get a job? First question.
Yeah.
What's the percentage of keeping their jobs? What is the percentage of unemployment in Sweden? And if they have the same chances or whatever. And the second question, if to start their new job, they have a fund, and how much it is.
Okay. Well, I tried to answer some of your questions. When it comes to the unemployment rate in Sweden, it's about 9% in average. For young people, it's about 20%. Young people in Sweden is up to 25 years of age. When it comes to measuring how many of the offenders that get an employment after their release or during their sentence, I have not a clue, because we have had big problems in Sweden when it comes to measuring specific persons, and especially persons within the prison and probation service, because of our laws of what kind of data you are allowed to save in our system. But this year, there was a change in the law. So from now, from 1st of April, we have put forward a system where we can put in all the job seekers from the prison and probation service that we meet in the prison or in the probation, or that we meet in the ordinary employment office, because we meet them there as well. So from now, we can start to give you these figures. Well, not now, but in a year or so, we will put forward the first figures. So the only measure that we have is from the CRAMI, well, that I told you a little bit about. When it comes to CRAMI, I think that they are working with a couple of, let's say, what can it be, 3,000 people a year that go through CRAMI, and from them approximately 50% gets an employment. When it comes to funds, we don't have any funds, but we have a lot of programs and measures that is paid by the state. So we have a lot of programs that is given to the employers for taking on an ex-offender in an employment. So you can have some kind of benefit for that, and that is very useful and helpful for sure. We have had discussions in Sweden now when it comes to, there's a lot of employers that now demands from the job seekers that they should show that they are plain, that they have no, what do you say in English? When you have, alltså, belastningsregister. Do you know that in English? Well, you should show the employer that you haven't been convicted. And that is more and more common around the employers. So then you, of course, the first idea you think when it comes to this cooperation between the employment service and the prison on probation is that, wow, it must be so difficult for these groups of job seekers to have an employment, but actually it is not harder, because when an employment officer that is working in the prison or in the probation comes to an employer, he knows, the employer knows that this person has been convicted. He don't have to ask that or demand a special paper, because he knows that from the beginning. So it's, and that is good, I think. That is good for the job seeker, because he don't have to lie or say something untrue.
And what happens when this period expires, that the employers hire someone, because they get some benefits, I think.
Yes, they get some benefits
So
for.
when this period expires, do they keep on working or?
Well, I think it's, sometimes it's like that. They keep them, and often they do, when it comes to this group actually. Because we have the possibility to extend the benefits for the employer for 1, 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the disability on the job seeker. But what many of the employment officers said when it comes to our ex-offender group is that after 1 year, they have seen that this person is very capable of working, so there is no need for further assistance.
A typical task for Christina, she had to capacitate all the audience after the lunch break.
Some of you.
It was not easy, I am sure, but you did it brilliantly. So for this fantastic job, please receive this award from all of us.
Thank you so much.
After the coffee break, you are all
No coffee yet.
after the short coffee break that is possible in here, you are all expected for the 6 parallel workshops. After that, we are all going to see each other here to see which is the result of the union of forces between USA and Norway. So, enjoy.
Thank you. I'm going to do this.
Har du nogle gode bilder?
Det tror jeg.
Ja, det tror jeg også.
Jeg har et rigtig godt billede af en sidemand fra Guldfoss. Ej, hvor ser det fedt ud. Og lige bliver vist det faktisk. Ja. Jeg snakkede lidt med Elfie, hun skuffede mig og gennemgik det hele med mig. Og så var hun meget utilfreds med, at hun vidste hendes erfaring, og der var ikke nogen, der spurgte hende, og hun var meget erfaren, og det lød ligesom om hun ikke vidste noget, og det var hun meget rigtig glad over. Så jeg tror ikke, at det gik på, at om det var erfaring. Fordi at jeg tror, at din livserfaring er meget stor, så jeg kan mærke på dig, at du ved måske mere end en eller anden, som rigtig mange ting. Men jeg tror, at det vi træffede beslutningen om, det var erfaring i forhold til
Vi sa jo derfor som vi har tatt det beste til for EPA.
Ja, ja, det er
Vi da.
tror jeg, ja. Nemlig. Men hvad her, det er bare så I ved det.
Ja,
Ja.
men det er bra.
Ja, jeg synes, det er fint nok. Ja.
Det var et riktig svar, og det var et godt svar.
Ja, man kunne have sagt meget mere, men det var ikke nødvendigt at sige mere. Det synes jeg var okay.
Men noen må jo bestemmes. Det er deilig. På grunnlag av det lille man vet.
Som jeg siger, jeg er glad for, at det ikke var Malta, der var formand. Så. Og det siger måske meget om det, vi har gjort. Ikke? Men det er også rigtigt, at det er i orden, hvis man har en formand og lader formanden tage ordet. Det er også lederskab.
Ja, på det stedet var det gående.
Så gidder du på en eller annen anledning å bare se gjennom the minutes?
Ja, klart det.
Jeg sendte det til deg og Hilde
Ja, flott. Ja, jeg skal se på det.
før vi sender det videre til andre.
Ja. Perfekt. Jeg skal lese.
Prøvde å være så nøktern som mulig.
Ja, men det er helt sikkert bra på det, men jeg kan godt ja, for du hørte noe, det var ja, det er alltid noen som har noen meninger om ting. Nej, tydligen inte. Det är nu här. Det blev lite sent. Och sen ska vi komma tillbaka. Kaffet är efter. Kaffet är efter det. Och det serveras ju den. Vi behöver flytta mer på den här mikrofonen. Det är kanske syns fortfarande inte. Åh nej.
Are you finding a time for a meeting here?
We really need it. Let's just take a look at the program and see if you can find.
I think we should let them start with the workshop.
Yes. Yeah.
Ja, vi hadde jo sånn når dere fikk retten i Manchester. Hvem var det?
Hi, can you join me please? I think you did well at that meeting. It wasn't easy, some of your issues.
No, but
No, I think you did it very well.
We tried to do our best, and
You did.
I hope that is
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah. I must talk to her about our own system. These things have kind of broken down. I don't think anyone's paid any money for a while now. I'm a life member, so I get it free. You know? Like the free bus pass when you're old, you know. And
But I think the system is a bit when we the liaison persons and the Victor will representatives are responsible to select the most.
yeah.
But if they are there, I don't know how we do it.
Yeah, I would say it's breaking down and it's giving. But we are reorganising in Ireland, and I think we'll manage it. We'll do something. What I think we're going to do, I just met with the new chairwoman, who's a woman named Jane Carrigan. She'll be very, very good. In fact, with her research, I was part of the program this morning. She did research, she went and asked the business what you get from education. I think we might, it will be the autumn now, it will be September, October, we'll try and make contact. What we might say to people is not paid for 2013, it's kind of bit late. They will say if you join now, you can join for 2014, and you know, it's like 33% extra free, you know, introductory offer or something. I think we'll do something like that, and that's legal, and we'll do it. And I talked to her about the process.
Because I think we are thinking of a new system for the treasurer just to have the mail or if the membership list is accurate. All the members.
Yeah.
If we have everything clear, then it should be no problem for the treasurer to send the reminder to each and every member at the same time.
Yeah, and even if it's where there are branches, you'll be able to say, join, please pay your liaison person. So yeah, I think that'll be good. Yeah.
You know, in Norway we have
Because it's a different system, isn't it? Where there's a branch and where there's individual members.
Yes.
So you need kind of two systems.
yes, for branches.
So like, I mean, you just pick out all the Irish and say, pay your liaison. Do you pay your liaison person or treasurer? Because we have a treasurer in Ireland. So yeah, I'll talk to many about the system.
Yes, I will ask them that
Because you know,
I stay here.
Snägen, the treasurer, he's also the treasurer of the Fotboll.
Yeah.
That's the same person.
Yeah.
And he will transfer it all to
Yes.
treasurer. We collect only the money from the members.
Yeah. So that's what we do in Ireland. Yeah. Now we've only 13 members at the moment, but we'll get it back up to 20 or 20 something or 30 or something. Yeah. And then and what we do is we charge €25, and then €20 goes to EPA. Isn't that right? It's still the membership. I talk to her. Hello.
Hello. It's a long way away. Come closer.
I think we have some good people coming on the committee. Right? the chairman.
Okay, the group is
And the game at
great. Bigger than so maybe they told them. It's an interesting.
I don't know Tony, by the way. He's Ismail, you probably know him from Italy. He's the English
You
director.
can't see the speakers over there. Come closer. It's better. You can look in their eyes, so you will see that they are.
Yeah, and I make contact with them as well.
So now, perfect, with a few minutes later we start this workshop number 6. My name is Victor from Switzerland, and I have the pleasure to announce the two Americans. We heard a lot about America and Europe yesterday, all these two flats, and I remember that's a dramatical story when there is some movement. Today I promise you it's not dramatical, but it will be a very interesting thing. For I see many new faces here around, so I have to tell you that Dr. Caroline Ecclestone, she is nearly a European member. Well, she represented the States, but I know her since a long time, and for me, she's not a traditional American representative of prison education. She's a researcher, but she's also a practical woman, so I respect very much what she has to tell to us. So she's nearly a neighbor of EPA, so like we are. So, and Mr. Bill Muth, he's not so well known, but this can change in the next 10 conferences.
Very famous in my family.
Okay, so no, this morning when I heard he has a very special aspect of re-entry, a very interesting one and a very important one that I think only very few people speaks about this topic. You will hear. What's the reason why we have, under the title Theory and Reality, these two speakers? I can tell you why. All 4 years they have elections, presidential elections in America. And in the first part of this election, they hear the theory, the promises, the wishes and whatever. And then once when the president is elected, then they have the reality. And this they will tell you now. Please.
Thank you. Well, welcome. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Good. So, in the morning session, I mentioned that Bill and I have been friends and colleagues for 40 years. As first teachers in prisons and in university life, he assures me that it's just a little over 30 years. To which I have to respond, it just feels like it's been 40 years since we've known each other. So we started out as teachers in prison very, very long time ago. I'm glad it's not actually 40, but he worked with the federal system and I worked with the state system. And so we've been working together since that time. My husband, Tom Gehring, was expecting to come and present with us, and he's been ill, but he wanted to tell you that he misses you and he's sorry that he can't be here. I'm no good at telling jokes, so I like to have the words of someone else. Can we fix that?
Yes, sir.
And we like to have the words of others to speak because they often will say it more effectively than we. And I'd like to start today with a quote that's not from a prison educator, but someone who, particularly in this statement, really typifies, I think, what we're trying to accomplish here. A quote from Shirley Chisholm, who was the first African-American woman to run for president in the United States. And I use this a lot in my own little life because I think it's important. What she said was, service is the rent that we pay for the privilege of living on this earth. And so for many of us, I believe we really do feel that we're in service as a way to pay back what's happening in the world. And I've been involved in a project that is now people who are coming out of prison and providing service as well, and their opportunity then to give back. So I think that's really quite important. I want to start with a little bit about what's going on in the American prison system. And what I would say to you is, whatever is being done in the U.S., do exactly the opposite in your country. You saw the scale yesterday about prison rates everywhere and in the United States, right? So it is pretty bad. Do you think it would be better if I just spoke to you?
David sent someone.
They're going to fix it, okay. And so, these are some of the statistics that are really pretty frightening. 1 in 104 Americans is behind bars. 1 in 33 Americans is under some kind of correctional control. So, for African Americans, that number is 1 in 18. 1 in 18 African Americans in the United States is under some kind of correctional control. It's very hard to even conceptualize those numbers. 1 in 4 of the world's prisoners is in a prison in the United States. Is it? Okay, is that better? Or can you hear me? Yes. That's better? Yeah. Thank you so much. Over 10,000 prisoners are released from state and federal prisons every week. These are pretty scary. And let me tell you a little bit about our different systems, because each country has slightly different. We have in the U.S. really 3 different systems. We have local prisons, which are usually what you would see as jails, and those are run by a local jurisdiction. And then we have state prisons, which represent the largest number of prisoners in our country. And then we have the federal system. And the federal system tends to be for people who have committed certain categories of crime. So unlike Canada, for example, where their federal prisons are for those who have committed higher level crimes, ours are for specific crimes in our federal system. And in addition, we also have both probation and parole. The federal system, they're all called probationers after they get out. In the state system, they are probationers if they have been coming out of the county or local jurisdictions. They are parolees if they come out of state jurisdiction. Just to keep it interesting, so that you'll be confused, but we have those kinds of systems. Of prisoners who come out of state prisons, and I think the federal system as well, 2/3 will be reincarcerated. And then here, the last note there is one of the things I think that keeps our prison machinery operating, and that is that 1 out of 8 state employees works for the prison system. In California, which has the dubious honor of leading the United States in its incarceration rate, we spend more state dollars on prisons than we do on education. And there's something inherently wrong with the system that does that on so many levels. So, 1 in 14 state dollars is spent on corrections, and 1 in 9 is spent on some kind of community supervision. In California, it costs about $55,000 a year to incarcerate somebody. That's after the prison cell has been built. This is just to incarcerate. The program that we're working on for reintegration is about $5,000 a year. And you see from the cartoon, you may not be able to see it so well, but it has, as part of what feeds the prison sow, fear, malice, corruption, hate. But at the bottom it says, oh yes sir, but she's very productive. And so we use this to represent what's going on in America.